My girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend while I was on a business trip. They both forgot they were living in my house. The house has been mine since I bought it 4 years ago. Single name on the mortgage, single name on the deed, single name on every utility. Cassie moved in 14 months into our relationship. She brought a couch, 2 plants, and a closet's worth of clothes. Felix moved in 8 months after that. Felix is my best friend since high school. His apartment got sold out from under him by a landlord flipping the building, and he had 2 weeks to find something. I gave him my guest room, told him to take as long as he needed, didn't charge him rent because we'd been friends since we were 14, and that's what you do. 4 months later, Felix was still in the guest room. He had not looked at a single listing. Cassie thought it was weird, brought it up once, and then I said Felix would figure it out and we let it go. My job has me on the road about a week out of every month. Sales meetings, client visits, the kind of travel where I'm in a hotel in a different state more nights than I'm home. Cassie's job is local. Felix worked from home or at a coffee shop, somewhere with Wi-Fi anyway. So whenever I was on a trip, the two of them had the house to themselves. That had been true for over half a year. The trip that ended things was supposed to be 8 days, 2 cities, standard. On day 6, my last client meeting got moved up to the morning, which freed up a flight home a day and a half early. Cassie didn't get a heads up because I wanted to surprise her. Walking through my own front door at 9 in the morning on what was supposed to be a Sunday for the two of them was the surprise. Cassie was at the stove. Felix was at the counter, in my dark green hoodie, the one Cassie had given me for my birthday 2 years ago. 2 coffees, pancakes going. The way they were standing was the way 2 people stand when they've been standing in the same room together for a long time. Cassie saw me first. Her hand stopped halfway to the spatula. "Oh my God, you're home!" Felix's face went through 3 colors in a second. Hey man, you're early." Asking what was happening got me, from Cassie, nothing. Felix was just up early and we were making breakfast. And from Felix, yeah, I crashed on the couch last night. Fell asleep watching a movie. The couch he was pointing at had a perfectly arranged throw blanket on it, the kind of folded blanket that doesn't survive somebody actually sleeping under it. Their faces told me everything in about 4 seconds. But the room with pancakes on wasn't the place to argue it. I told them I was going upstairs to shower and unpack. They should stay where they were. Both of them sat down like I'd asked them to. In my own bathroom, a second toothbrush was in the cup, not Cassie's. Cassie's was on her side of the double sink where it always lived. The new one was on the side closer to the door, with a brand of toothpaste Cassie doesn't use because she's allergic to the mint in it. Felix's brand, I knew because we'd bought it together at an airport once when he forgot his on a guy's weekend. The shower I took was short. Standing in there with the water running, I went back through every business trip of the last 8 months. Every weekend I'd been gone. Every time Felix had been on the couch when I got home looking like he hadn't moved in 3 days. Every time Cassie had been weirdly chipper in a way that didn't add up. Not angry yet, mostly just tired. Coming back down, I sat across from them at the counter. "I want you both out by Sunday." Cassie started crying. "Please, can we just talk about this?" "Nothing happened. I swear, nothing happened." Felix tried. "Man, this is crazy. You can't throw the whole thing away over an assumption. We've been friends since we were kids." Nothing was being assumed, I told them. What I'd needed to see, I'd seen at the stove. The toothbrush was the rest. Cassie's face changed at the word toothbrush. Okay, listen. It started a few months ago, but it isn't what you think it is. We were just lonely. You've been on the road so much. You've been gone constantly this year, and I needed somebody to talk to. And Felix was here, and that sentence didn't have an end. Felix tried his own version. "It wasn't planned. I know how this looks, but I love you like a brother. You know that. And Cassie and I, it was a situation. It wasn't something we set out to do. I don't want this to be the thing that ruins our friendship." His version was that he loved me like a brother. The brother whose girlfriend he was sleeping with, in whose house he was living, in whose hoodie he was currently standing. Cassie pivoted. "Where am I supposed to go on 5 days' notice? I have nothing." It was my house, I reminded her. Her name had never been on the lease, the mortgage, the utilities, on anything. The next 2 days were a strange, quiet standoff. Cassie moved into the bedroom and stayed there. Felix stayed in the guest room. I slept on the couch in my own house, which is a sentence I still can't believe I'm typing. Nobody talked. We moved around each other like people in a hospital waiting room, just close enough to feel the presence, never close enough to make eye contact. Monday came and went without a single word between the 3 of us. Cassie started leaving plates of food outside the living room door. The first one was pasta, still warm, with a fork wrapped in a napkin. The second was a sandwich cut the way she knew I liked it, on the diagonal. I didn't touch either of them. They sat on the floor in the hallway until the food got cold and I threw them out. I just couldn't eat something she made and feel okay about it. The whole house smelled like someone else's version of normal, and I was a guest in my own space. Tuesday during the day was more of the same. Silence. Footsteps upstairs, a toilet flushing, the sound of someone opening the fridge and closing it again. Little signs of life from people I didn't want to share a roof with anymore. Tuesday evening, Felix knocked on the living room doorframe. 2 knuckles. Not sure he was allowed. He was standing there in a plain t-shirt, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him look. "Can we talk? Just you and me." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. He took that as permission. He sat down in the chair across from the couch, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. No defensive act. "I know sorry doesn't cover it. I just want you to know I never wanted this to happen." I asked him the question that had been sitting in my chest. "When did it start?" Felix looked at the floor. "Around February." It was September. February to September is 7 months. Not a few months, like Cassie had said with tears running down her face. 7 months. Felix saw it hit me. He watched me do the math and he watched his face change when he realized what he'd just given away. Cassie had said a few months. He'd said February. Those 2 stories didn't match, and now he knew that I knew they didn't match. "Was it going on before you moved in?" I said. "Or after?" Felix didn't answer. He looked at the wall behind me. He looked at his hands. He opened his mouth and closed it. The silence lasted 6 seconds. That hesitation told me everything his words wouldn't. It was going on before he lost his apartment, before he showed up at my door with a duffel bag and a story about a landlord flipping his building. "Stop talking," I told him. "Go pack." Felix stood up. His eyes were wet and his voice cracked when he said, "Okay." He walked out toward the guest room. I sat on the couch and for a second something in me went soft. Not forgiveness, more like memory. Felix and I had been friends since we were 14. He was there when my dad got sick. I was there when his mom moved away and didn't tell him where she was going. We learned to drive in the same car. The old loyalty was pulling at me hard, the kind of pull that makes you feel like a bad person for doing the right thing. I almost got up to tell him he could have 2 more weeks. Almost. Then about 10 minutes later, walking down the hallway to get a glass of water, I heard Felix's voice through the guest room door. Quiet, almost a whisper. He was on the phone. I think if we both just stay calm and don't push him, he'll come around. He always does. Just give it a few more days. He was talking to Cassie. Cassie, who was upstairs in the bedroom, 30 feet above his head. They were on the phone inside my house, strategizing. He always does. Like my forgiveness was just a thing they could count on. A feature of my personality they'd already factored into their plan. I stood in that hallway and listened to my best friend and my girlfriend talk about me like I was a door they just needed to find the right key for. The softness I'd felt 5 minutes ago didn't fade. It didn't cool off slowly. It just died. Right there in the hallway, standing on the hardwood floor, I'd refinished myself the summer I bought the house, listening to 2 people I loved treat my kindness like a weakness they could use. I went back to the couch, sat down, and started thinking about what I needed to do next. Not what I felt, not what hurt, what I needed to do. Because Felix was right about one thing. I did always come around. I always gave people the extra chance, the extra week, the benefit of the doubt. That was the version of me that let Felix move in without a timeline. That was the version of me that believed Cassie when she said it was nothing. That version was done. Wednesday morning, I picked up my phone and called Daryl. Daryl has been my friend since college, and he's the kind of person who will tell you that you have food in your teeth in front of a crowd without blinking. No sugarcoating, no softening, just the truth whether you're ready for it or not. That was what I needed right now. Not comfort, not someone to tell me it would be okay. Someone who would tell me what to do and mean it. I told him everything. The early flight, the pancakes and the hoodie, the toothbrush, Cassie's confession that fell apart halfway through, Felix's brother's speech, the Sunday deadline, Tuesday night, and the overheard call. When I finished, Daryl was quiet. Then he said, "You gave them Sunday. That's more than they deserve. What do you need from me?" I told him I needed someone there on Sunday. Not because I thought things would get physical, because I didn't trust the situation. I didn't trust that Cassie would actually leave. I didn't trust that Felix wouldn't show back up with some new speech. Daryl didn't hesitate. "I'll be there Saturday night. I'll drive up after work." Then he asked me, "Have you checked whether either of them has been getting mail at your address? Because depending on your state, they might try to claim residency." My stomach got tight. I hadn't thought about that. Not even a little. I'd been so focused on the betrayal, on the emotional side of all of this, that the practical stuff hadn't crossed my mind. I walked to the front door where the mail had been piling up for the last week. I sat down on the floor right there in the entryway and went through the stack piece by piece. Cassie had bank statements coming to my address, not 1 or 2. A steady stream of them, going back over a year. Her name printed neatly above my home address on every envelope. Felix had a couple of packages addressed to him too, smaller stuff, but his name was on them, and my address was on them, and that was enough to make my hands feel cold. I pulled out my phone and looked up the local tenant advisory line. It took a couple tries to get through, but when I finally got someone on the phone, I explained the situation as simply as I could. 2 people living in my house, no lease, no written agreement, no rent being paid, and I needed them out by Sunday. The person on the line said that because neither Cassie nor Felix had a lease, a rental agreement, or any history of paying rent, a firm move-out request with reasonable notice was usually enough. She suggested I put the request in writing, date it, and keep a copy for myself, just in case. That night, I typed 2 letters. Cassie's name, the date, a clear statement that she needed to be out by Sunday at midnight. Same for Felix. I printed 2 copies of each, signed them, set one aside for my own records. Thursday morning, before either of them was moving around, I slid Cassie's letter under the bedroom door and Felix's under the guest room door. 20 minutes later, I heard the bedroom door open. Cassie came down holding the letter, eyes red. "You're really doing this? You're putting it in writing like I'm some stranger?" I didn't feel angry or sad. I felt clear. "You made yourself a stranger." She stood there for 5 seconds and then turned around and went back upstairs. That afternoon, around 3 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from Daryl. "Heads up," it said. "Cassie messaged me on social media. She's telling me you kicked her out with no warning because you got paranoid about her and Felix being friends. She says nothing happened and you're overreacting. Just wanted you to know." I read that message twice. I read it a 3rd time just to make sure I was understanding it right. Cassie, who had sat across from me 4 days ago and admitted to my face that she and Felix had been together for months, was now reaching out to my friends and telling them nothing happened. She was rewriting the whole thing, building a version of the story where she was the victim and I was the crazy jealous guy who threw her out over a friendship. She hadn't even left yet and she was already working on how the story would sound once she was gone. I texted back, "She admitted it to my face. Felix admitted it. She's lying." Daryl's reply came through a few seconds later. "I know. I'm not going anywhere. See you Saturday." I set the phone down on the couch cushion and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Friday morning, I woke up to the sound of something being dragged across the floor downstairs. Felix was by the front door with a duffel bag over one shoulder and a backpack at his feet, dressed in his own clothes for once. No hoodie of mine. "I found a place to crash. A coworker's got a spare room." I nodded. He put his hands in his pockets and looked at the floor. "I know I don't have the right to ask you anything, but can you go easy on Cassie? She doesn't have anywhere to go, and she's scared. Asking me to take care of the woman he'd been sleeping with behind my back, in my house, for 7 months. Asking me to be the generous guy one more time. Cassie is a grown woman. She made her own choices. Where she lives now is not my problem anymore." Felix nodded. Not a slow nod like he was thinking about it. A quick one, like he already knew that was going to be the answer, and had just needed to hear it out loud so he could tell Cassie he tried. He walked back to the front door, picked up the duffel, grabbed the backpack, and opened the door. He didn't apologize again. He didn't turn around for one last look or say anything about calling me or about how maybe one day we could talk. He just walked out. I heard his footsteps on the porch, then on the driveway, then a car door opening and closing, then the engine starting, then nothing. 15 years of friendship, since we were 14 years old, since before either of us could drive, ended with the sound of a car door closing and an engine pulling away. Friday night, around 8, Cassie came down into the living room and she looked different. She was wearing the kind of outfit she used to wear when we'd go out to dinner together. A nice top, her hair done, a little bit of makeup, not a lot, just enough to look like she'd made an effort. She looked like the Cassie Cassie from a year ago, the one who would sit across from me at a restaurant and laugh at something I said and make me feel like the luckiest guy in the room. She sat down on the couch next to me, not on the other end, next to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the one she always wore on date nights. She folded her hands in her lap and spoke softly, carefully, like every word had been chosen ahead of time. I know I messed up, she said. I know it's over between us. I'm not trying to fix that. I know I can't. But could I please just have 2 more weeks? Just 2 weeks to find a room somewhere. I'll sleep in the guest room, the one Felix was in. I won't bother you. You won't even know I'm here. I'll be invisible. I just need a little more time. Her voice was steady, controlled, not a single crack in it, not a single tear. This wasn't the Cassie from Sunday who had been crying and scrambling for excuses. This was a performance. This was rehearsed. And for a second, maybe 2 seconds, I almost said yes. 2 weeks wasn't crazy. It was a reasonable ask on the surface. Then Felix's voice came back to me, clear as if he was still in the hallway whispering into his phone. Stay calm. Don't push. Give it a few more days. This was the playbook. This was exactly what they'd talked about. She was reading from the script they wrote together while I was sitting on the couch thinking about giving Felix a second chance. No, I said. Sunday is Sunday. Cassie's steady expression held for 1 more second, and then something behind her eyes tightened. She stood up, smoothed her shirt, and went back upstairs. Saturday morning, Daryl pulled into the driveway in his pickup. He gave me a short hug, the kind guys give each other when words aren't going to do the job, and walked inside. We were getting him a glass of water when Cassie stepped out onto the porch. She must have seen the truck. So you told people. You're making this a whole thing. Daryl turned to face her. He didn't have to tell me anything. I'm just here because he asked me to be. Cassie waited for him to take a side or say something she could push back on. He didn't give her anything else. Something in her face shifted. She turned around and went back inside. Saturday evening, Daryl and I were eating takeout when Cassie came downstairs with her phone in her hand. I've been looking into it, and I think I have tenant rights here. I've been living here for over a year. You might not be able to just kick me out like this. She said it like it was a fact. I set my fork down. I'd been waiting for this. You have no lease, no rental agreement. You don't pay rent. You never have. And I gave you 5 days of written notice with a dated letter slid under your door. If you want to call someone and check whether that's enough, go ahead. I'll wait. I picked up my fork and went back to my food. She looked at her screen like she was going to pull up a number. She looked at Daryl, who was eating his food and not looking at her. She looked back at me. She didn't make the call. She stood there for 10 seconds, then turned around and walked back toward the stairs. A few minutes later, I heard drawers opening and closing upstairs. Faster, with purpose. Cassie was packing. Sunday morning came and the house was quiet in a way that felt like the whole building was holding its breath. Daryl and I were sitting at the counter with 2 cups of coffee between us. No pancakes, no breakfast cooking. Just coffee and the sound of the fridge humming and the early light coming through the window over the sink. We weren't talking much. We didn't need to. Then I heard the bedroom door open upstairs. Footsteps, heavier than usual. The kind of footsteps that come with carrying things. Cassie came down the stairs slowly, 1 step at a time, and when she rounded the corner, she had 2 suitcases behind her, 1 in each hand, a cardboard box of clothes tucked under her arm, and the 2 plants she'd brought with her when she first moved in balanced on top of the box. She'd packed everything. Her face was flat, not angry, not sad, not anything I could name. It was the face of someone who had already decided how she wanted to look in this moment and was committed to holding it. She walked to the counter, reached into her pocket, and pulled out the house key. She set it down hard, a sharp little sound against the granite, like a period at the end of a sentence she'd been writing all week. I hope this makes you happy. Being right. This doesn't make me happy, I said. None of this makes me happy, but you did this. Cassie's jaw tightened. Then she turned to Daryl, who hadn't said a word since she came downstairs. You only know his side. Daryl looked at her. Even. Steady. I know you admitted it, Cassie. That's not a side. That's a fact. Cassie's mouth opened. Then it closed. Then it opened again, and nothing came out. She reached down and picked up her bags. She carried everything to the front door, the suitcases bumping against her legs, the box balanced against her hip, the plants wobbling on top. She got to the door and stopped. She didn't turn around. She just stood facing the door with her back to us and said, Felix and I started talking before he even moved in. He didn't lose his apartment by accident. He asked his landlord not to renew his lease so he'd have a reason to move in here. He wanted to be closer to me. I should have told you then. I didn't. That's on me. The room went completely silent. Felix didn't fall into this. Felix planned it. He engineered the whole thing. The friend who showed up at my door with a duffel bag and a story about a landlord selling the building, who I gave my guest room to without a second thought, who I didn't charge $1 because that's what you do for someone you've loved like a brother since you were 14. He'd set it all up. He wanted in my house so he could be closer to my girlfriend, and I held the door open for him. Cassie walked out. The door closed. That afternoon, I changed the locks. Daryl helped me drag the guest room bed into the garage and take down the pictures that weren't mine. By evening, the house was mine again. 3 days later, Cassie sent a text that started with, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I deleted it without reading past that line. The locks are different now. I haven't heard from Felix. I don't expect to.